Hey, it's Kevin with the New Warehouse Podcast, bringing you a new episode today. And on today's episode, I am going to be joined by Mark Riskowitz, and he is the VP of Operations at Caraway Home, which is bringing some very nice cookware into your house. And from an e-commerce perspective, has been quite explosive over the last 5 years, and they're also in retail outlets as well. So we're going to dive into a little bit about his experience there from an operations perspective, and being employee number one actually at the company, and what that looked like, and how he kind of navigated that growth over the last few years, and really dive into what does their distribution strategy look like, what are some of the challenges with some of the heavier items, larger items that they're shipping, and also talk a little bit about returns too. That nasty R word, right? That people in operations don't necessarily like too much. So we'll dive into a little bit of that and how they kind of handle some of that stuff. So, Mark, welcome to the show. How are you?
Thank you for having me, Kevin. I really appreciate joining and happy to share, discuss, and just have a good time chatting through the world of kitchenware and e-commerce. So doing pretty well today. How about yourself?
Doing well, doing well. Definitely happy to get you on here and talk to you about this too as well. I think it's a very interesting perspective, to get see how you've kind of navigated some of this stuff. So looking forward to diving in for sure. So why don't you kind of start off here, kick us off a little bit, and tell us about your background, and also I saw that you were employee number one at Caraway too as well. So tell us a little bit about your background and how you kind of came to get that opportunity, and what that looked like.
Yeah, of course. Technically, employee number two, if you call the founder and CEO
Sure.
an employee, but who's counting, right? Um, yeah, so prior to Caraway, the founder and CEO Jordan Nathan and I used to work at the same company called the Mohawk Group. They since rebranded to Aterian, publicly listed company, a company that owned a handful of different brands and used contracted factories overseas, imported the product into the US, and then sold predominantly on Amazon.
Mm,
Mostly FBA in the beginning, and then seller fulfilled prime after a while, with probably about 10% non-Amazon revenue at that time. It's changed a lot since then, but during that time, I ran the logistics of the company, so everything from production operations, freight forwarding, inbounding, 3PL fulfillment, outbound components, as well as the customer experience. As soon as that grew to a certain point, I sort of gave the CX piece away and sort of let go of those Legos, and moved into strictly logistics. Fast forward a little bit, Jordan had the idea for Caraway, wanted someone to come join and help sort of build the backbone of the company from an ops perspective, and wasn't too keen on getting stuck into logistics. So
mm,
dropped me a message and invited me for a coffee, and then from there the rest was history. So that's
mm.
kind of how things got started.
Nice, interesting, and yeah, from coffee to 5 years later, now here you are, right? So very interesting there, and I guess tell us too. I mean, what, because you worked, you said at a company before handling logistics, and that was primarily focused on selling through Amazon, different brands. What kind of got you interested in this world, whether it's the logistics operation side, or the e-commerce side in general? I mean, what really sparked your interest there?
Yeah, it really kind of came to fruition where I was excited to be a part of something from the ground up, where I just had more of a say in terms of how things were constructed and built, and especially in supply chain, entering that kind of a journey in a sort of proactive stance as opposed to a reactive one, which is, I would say 90-95% of the case with most professionals. Is it's a lot
Mm,
of putting out fires, reacting, band aiding, doing a lot of those cleanup based activities and projects, as opposed to proactively building out a supply chain, the sort of tech behind it as well. So that whole idea was pretty attractive to me, and I thought that it allowed for a lot of experimentation, a lot of optimization when you didn't have a lot of baggage to inherit. And so I think that was a really attractive idea. And then, of course, Caraway itself, in terms of where the company was being positioned as a premium kitchen brand, I thought it was super exciting, very aesthetically pleasing products that made a
Yeah.
lot of sense and products that I would love to own as an individual. So that sort of combination was super attractive to me at the time. I did happen to be looking for something else and for my next move, so that always helps as a bit of a catalyst.
Mm.
And so just the idea of getting started at the ground up was really exciting and something that I wanted to challenge myself with as well. So it was kind of a no brainer. I just had to figure out what the risks were. Obviously, getting involved in a super early stage company, about 6 months pre revenue.
Yeah.
But everything sort of made sense. Jordan pitched a sort of fantastic business case and opportunity in front, and I had to say yes and see where this thing turned up.
Definitely. Yeah. Yeah. That's great too. And obviously you made a good choice, I think, seeing how Caraway has kind of exploded over the last 5 years. So tell us a little bit about that because, you were, let's see, technically employee number three, right? You corrected me there. But yeah, I mean, tell us a little bit about, going from that initially, like just, a couple months into them starting this business and now to 5 years, obviously, being successful and having a lot of explosive growth, not only in e-commerce, but also on the retail side too, as well. Tell us a little bit about how you've kind of handled that. And, did you expect it to happen that fast? And, how did you kind of navigate all that explosive growth from an operations perspective?
Yeah, I think a big part of it is the foresight in knowing what the objective and goals were as a business and as a brand. And what I mean by that is the idea of omnichannel is obviously one of the most complicated
Mm,
aspects of a brand, especially in modern day. A lot of the time when brands are generally D2C or Amazon only and they're trying to now be omnichannel, or they are more traditional where they're wholesale and retail and are not trying to be more online. I think because it was part of the business plan from the beginning that omni-channel, working with different types of retailers, dropship partners, marketplaces, wedding registry websites, with a long-term understanding that we did want to be accessible as a brand in as many places as possible, was probably the most helpful, transparent goal that was set in the beginning. So it allowed a lot of the different building blocks to be planned and constructed according to that final outcome. Um, so I think that was just helpful to understanding what kind of 3PL partner we wanted to work with, what kind of CX team we wanted to assemble, what kind of order management systems, imagery management systems we wanted to establish, and what the needs of those should be today, but also in 2 years' time, 3 years' time, and so on. At the same time, there's a lot of things and gaps and mistakes made that were difficult to cover at the pace that we were operating at. And I think going back to your question on that, COVID was definitely a crazy magnifier of growth in
yeah.
the kind of best way possible for a lot of brands in the kitchen and home space if they could keep up.
Mm,
And for us, it almost took the company from year zero, one, two, and three, and sort of threw it right into year four, five, and six, even at a best
yeah.
case scenario. So
Yeah.
2020 compared to 2019 was just completely wild, and that growth just continued to um, exceed regular business practices and pace and what have you, which was very fortunate to be on the right side of that wave
Mm,
when COVID came along. So a lot of agility was required, a lot of reacting to the powers that were flowing into the business and the demands from customers and channels and what have you. And luckily, we were able to pull it off with a fantastic team that we assemble and continue to assemble today. So, really exciting times.
yeah, yeah, it's great, and I mean, you guys were, right on the cusp of COVID, right? I mean, launched in, Q4 of 2019, right? And then COVID really kind of kicks off in March, April timeframe of 2020. So is a good time, I guess, in a sense, to launch and be there for all those people that were at home and wanting to do more in the kitchen and bake their breads and all those things that people were doing during COVID, right? And very interesting to hear that, and obviously fantastic that you're able to fight through that increase in demand. And was I guess obviously COVID, I think, for everybody was unexpected, right? I mean, but at what point, I'm curious, did you look and maybe as you're seeing, look at your order volume and the sales you're getting, and you guys just kind of looked at each other and like, you know, wow, like we had no idea like that we would be, facing this kind of volume like this soon. I mean, what was kind of like that tipping point where you're like, oh, we need to really like, strategize and make sure we can meet this?
Yeah, it's a great question because there was really just so much going on in 2020, 2021, even that I really don't think there was a single moment of time where a handful of us, the leadership team or anything like that, just took a step back and said, look at how far we've come. There was
Mm,
just so much happening and so much to do. We have done that and reflected quite a lot over the past couple of months and the past year or two. But I think in the ramp up of that sort of hockey stick type of growth the company was seeing, um, there wasn't really any time to sort of assess and appreciate, which was
mm,
not a bad situation to be in. And as a young company, we're talking second, third year. It's like keep the pedal to the floor and let's keep on
yeah.
fueling this thing, see where it goes. But I think a big part of it was the desire and appetite that our customers had for our brand and our products in the space in general was pretty impressive to see when we started running into supply chain challenges like every other company in terms of stock availability, estimated shipping timelines and dates, where the conviction for purchase didn't change if you had stock or if you could project some kind of restock date that customers could still commit to. And so,
Mm.
seeing that conversion sort of maintain its pace and its growth was really just fascinating.
I think that's kind of very telling too of like, what we do in operations, right? We just put our head down, just get it done, basically, right? And but I'm happy to hear that you guys are able to reflect back and see like, wow, like we have come a long way. It's been successful in that sense. So tell us a little bit too about your, this is the new warehouse podcast. So obviously we want to hear about the warehousing side of things and distribution. So tell us a little bit about your distribution strategy. Do you guys utilize 3PLs? You do any self fulfillment? What does that look like?
Yeah, so we use 3PLs exclusively, and I say 3PLs
Mhm.
with an S, but it's multiple locations with one partner today.
Okay.
We do consider Amazon FBA in that network as kind of a third 3PL location or a second 3PL partner, if you like. Of course, there's a lot of debate in terms of how one should treat Amazon FBA and the pros and cons to it. However, yeah, just a single partner. We don't do any self fulfillment right now. That same partner, it's ironic that it wasn't timed at all, but I sent a appreciation post or put one on LinkedIn a couple of days ago, just to appreciate our 3PL and how they've been this holiday season, but also over the 5 years that we've been with them. So we opened up an account with them when we just had a couple hundred products being shipped out the door.
Okay.
Even one of the craziest stories is we had some packaging difficulties with our first couple inbounds where basically through the small parcel fulfillment networks, a cookware set wouldn't be able to sustain the journey from warehouse to customer, which required a big value add sort of repack and rework project that was right about when we were launching the brand to begin with. So typical startup challenges and issues.
Mm.
And it's great to see that the same partner that sort of held our hand through that process is the same one that we operate with today, where we've grown. I don't even know the percentages, numbers. Since then, it's probably something that doesn't really make sense to list out because of starting from zero all the way through to now.
Yeah.
But yeah, they've been a great partner with us, and I think we'll mostly stay 3PL focused. There's not really a strong business case for us to move to self fulfillment because we don't have a lot of high touch products or order flows. We
Mm.
don't do co-packing or any types of kitting, with the exception of a few projects. So self fulfillment is an idea that we're always exploring in the long term, but it's probably not practical for the foreseeable future for now.
Gotcha. Interesting. And when you started out, was that kind of the strategy to begin with, or did you kind of weigh out, should we start out with 3PL? I mean, I know you mentioned that you've been with them for 5 years, and you guys have been in business for about 5 years. So I mean, was that like the strategy initially? Was especially around, I guess, like designing the product and thinking about the product too. You mentioned you don't do any like kidding or anything like that. So, was it intentional to do that, to stick with 3PL from the beginning, or was there some thought of self fulfillment in the beginning too as well? Tell us a little bit about that thought process.
Yeah, absolutely. It's pretty straightforward. I mean, self fulfillment was too difficult to plan and commit to, given the fact that in summer of 2019 we were this newcomer brand to the kitchen space that had 6 or 7 SKUs, and they were just variants of the same product that we were launching. And so self fulfillment was rather, I'd say, difficult to buy into when the certainty and sort of general business concern was something that still needed to be proven out. And so the good news and the best part about leveraging a 3PL and some of the different software that's out there, especially today with small sellers and brands that are just looking to get that operation sort of outsourced and off the ground. We took advantage of that approach and wanted to do so with a partner that, should things take off and explode, that they could sustain that growth with us and really partner along the way to get to the different milestones and checkpoints that we want to hit. So part of that included whether we were strictly doing e-com or omni-channel, so that with the idea much earlier on being omni-channel and sort of focused with multiple different sales streams. That's something that we wanted to ensure that we were selecting the right partner from the beginning, that when the time comes to expand into those different options, we could do so. So it was really the only consideration at the time, and self-fulfillment is something that never really was on the cards. And I personally don't have experience running my own warehouses and overseeing a full team like that. So it didn't really make sense to explore much further.
Gotcha, gotcha. Yeah, yeah, that makes sense. Definitely. Yeah, you're kind of like, I don't want to deal deal with that a little
Love to
bit.
figure it out and try it
Yeah,
out.
yeah,
Yeah, just something where like I know 3PLs, but I don't
yeah.
know. I can pick, pack, and ship myself. I've done that many times, and
Sure.
mostly for the photo ops. But yeah, in terms of running a full warehouse and all the particulars in that, that's something I'd love to explore. But as a slow, passive, and discovery type project rather than a let's get going right now today.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. Yeah, yeah, a lot to do there, and a lot to figure out and get built out from infrastructure perspective and all those different things. So totally understandable to go with the 3PL. So now, so you mentioned that you've been with the same 3PL for the life of the company, basically 5 years, which means that you must have a pretty good 3PL there, right? So tell us a little bit about what are some of your thoughts and recommendations on for those that have a 3PL. I mean, what makes a good 3PL? Like, what's a difference maker to you as a brand?
Absolutely. I think to call them out and specifically, I don't know if I have ITS logistics. Like I say on LinkedIn, we do have a lot of exchanges back and forth on, giving each other credit. And I think the way that I view a 3PL, and even on the topic of self fulfillment, is I don't really distinguish between the people per
Mm,
se. And I encourage our team, and our team does the same, where we really view the partners we work with, especially on that side of the house, as an extension of the business rather than an outsourced contractor that's performing a task. And so I think just having that degree of familiarity and partnership collaboration, it really just fuels the possibilities, the likability between both clients and 3PL. and it allows you to align on the same types of goals where both sides can win ultimately. And I think a lot of brands, basically view the idea of a 3PL fulfillment as a necessary service and evil, and don't
Mm,
recognize that behind a 3PL or behind any sort of component of supply chain are people, and people are what make it, and people are what are required to make it a success and to run it in a way that is efficient, scalable, and enjoyable. I mean, supply chain can be enjoyable if you just let it be.
yep.
Obviously, it's been a tricky and rough, I'd say 5 years. It's more like 7 or 8, depending on when you start some of the chaos and how your supply chain globally has been. But
Mm,
I think finding the wins, partnering, being lighthearted about it, and just recognizing patterns and enjoyment in some of the partnerships that you strike up, I think is a recipe for incredible success and growth that you both can lean off each other. So, short version of that is treat the 3PL like people and find a fit for what's needed from both sides, not just from client to 3PL.
yeah, absolutely. And I think that's such a great thing to think about there because, it is like an extension, right? And there still is that human element to it. It's not just necessarily, I mean, it's transactional in a sense, but it's not necessarily just transactional, right? There's intricacies there that, a great relationship and partnership can help you either overcome or, be able to navigate a little easier than, maybe not such a great relationship, right? So tell us a little bit about kind of because I was looking at your website, doing a little research here, and I was curious to learn about like how you handle returns in that type of situation. And you guys obviously have larger items, some heavier items too, and in some aspects. So tell us a little bit about I guess how you handle those returns and what that looks like because obviously over the last few years, certainly returns has become such a hot topic, right? Especially around e-commerce. A lot of people buying things, sending it back because they didn't like it, or sometimes people using it, then sending it back, trying to get returned too as well, or even like returns fraud from that perspective. I mean, I saw you guys have a 30-day guarantee and that you do accept some stuff that's used as well and kind of what happens to that. So tell us a little bit about how you navigate kind of that whole mess of returns in a sense there.
Absolutely. It's a huge topic. And especially now that, recording this in the sort of getting towards the quieter time of holiday season,
Yeah.
depending on who you are and what kind of business you run. But returns and the onslaught of incoming returns, especially post December, is going to be pretty intense, as we all know. So you hit the nail on the head in terms of the difficulty and challenges, especially when it comes to the size of our products. I mean, so we have a pretty high average package volume. We ship kitchenware of all different shapes and sizes, and the average consumer is not coming to buy a single fry pan. They're looking to buy a couple of different pieces or sets or collections, bundles, what have you, for their kitchen. So per order, a lot goes out the door. And so, from a return standpoint, I think the most important thing is it is an area of a business that is often neglected and left behind because it's a pure cost center in most cases.
Mm,
And it tends to be that, especially when your restock rates are pretty minimal. We were at that point at one point where our restock rates, you can imagine high end kitchenware customers pull that out of their boxes, they start using it, it becomes a little bit either potentially stained, or maybe they careless with it because they're trying it out, and it gets a slight hard to see little scratch on the underside that unless you were inspecting it you wouldn't sort of notice it.
mm,
Customers that are shutting out a couple $100 for a new kitchen set are probably going to notice
yeah.
a marking or something like that. So our restock rates for new products was pretty low. So at the time and even today, we do have a couple of different outlets where we sell secondhand goods through some of our partners. Comeback Goods is one of them. We also do
Oh
some
yeah.
bulk distribution to a few partners that take sort of lightly used goods as well. But we've actually pretty heavily leveled up the returns process due to a few unlocks and efficiencies that we found where we've been able to boost our restock rates as well as the speed of return handling through really just leveraging smart technology and more robust SOPs, site visits, everything like that to understand the viability of restocking your product and what that looks like. So some examples, we've started leveraging the platform Two Boxes. My friend Carl runs the company over there, and
Yeah.
seems like everyone under the sun is starting to leverage Two Boxes now, which is
They are
great
everywhere.
to
Yeah.
have for them. So we're happy customers of that. So as our 3PL, and we're looking to really just gather all the data and insights and patterns from everything returns to understand how we can fill those gaps and how we can optimize the whole process and find those efficiencies. So it starts with that data, the data collection, the
Mhm.
aggregation, the efficiency that you need for return handling as a part of collecting that data as well. From there, you'll have a lot of different indicators to start exploring and identifying patterns and opportunities to elevate the whole process, improve customer education, modify return policies or processes based on product type or reason codes or things like that. So really, you need that sort of data house to begin feeding those ideas. So yeah, definitely a big topic and a big challenge, but something that we're excited to continue getting better at every single year.
Mm. Yeah, interesting. And it's interesting too to hear kind of the evolution, I guess, in a sense of how you've been able
Right.
to handle those returns and what you've been able to see and yeah, I do remember seeing you guys on Comeback Goods there. Shout out to Liesel over there as well. And
Lovely
you
Zul,
know,
yeah.
yeah,
What
and
a trooper she is.
definitely. And yeah, I mean, I think it's great to hear that you're able to, figure that out a little bit. And I think it is very interesting too, because you're, as you mentioned, like your customer, if there is like a slight ding or something, there, it's a premium product in a sense, right? So, they're going to be a little more attentive to that and they're going to be looking, it's not like $5 egg pan off Amazon or something that they're,
Mhm.
well, I'm just going to cook eggs. So whatever. Right. But they're buying it for, because of the quality of it and the aesthetic of it too, as well. So all those things are very, important to them as the consumer. So it's interesting to hear how you're navigating that and able to save some of it through different channels as well, and bring that in, which I think is really important too. And yeah, very very interesting to hear. And that data collection certainly goes a long way, and to be able to optimize that process a little more. So it's very
Yeah.
interesting to hear about that and how you navigate that. Now, as we look to the future from your kind of from a brand perspective, right? How do you kind of view the future of fulfillment, whether it's from a consumer behavior perspective or an operations perspective? What's exciting to you, or what do you think we should be on the lookout for in the future here?
It's a great question, and I think I could go on many different tangents depending on
Sure.
the topic, the brand, the industry. But I think something that hopefully now all the data points to the idea that it's been disproven is that instant gratification really is only applicable to a handful of industries and categories. And what I mean by that is we have years and years of data on everything from long-term back orders through to 5, 6, 7 day free shipping thresholds versus paying up 1-2% extra on top of an order to get 2 day delivery or something as fast as that. All the different indicators that really point to this idea that at least in the home goods space, kitchenware, bakeware, kettles, food storage, there's a very it's very unusual and unlikely that those products are going to be required instantaneously or next day or same day or anything like that. So I think to really focus on everything from an environmental, economic, and just general sustainability standpoint. Lower the urgency, I think, is key, especially in industries where it doesn't matter as much. And I think I don't want to downplay the idea of speedy fulfillment is, of course, something that you can do, but
Mm,
overnighting something or 2 day express versus balancing inventory where ground will get you there in 3 days for a fraction of the cost, especially in bulky items like we sell, um, is a much more constructive and sustainable way of approaching the challenge of fulfillment than just buying into the narrative that everybody wants everything instantaneously.
yeah.
Um, of course, I don't work in food and beverage. I don't work in baby products, and as a father of a 3-month-old myself, I know that
Yeah.
if I need diapers immediately, I need them immediately. But I'll also probably jump in my car and head out somewhere.
Yeah.
Probably strapping the baby up as fast as I can in the back seat and then in the car. So yeah, I think it really just depends on that, and I think it's the responsibility of operations professionals to repeat that narrative as much as possible that it really is only applicable, and it's really just going to make the cost center a lot more bloated than it should be.
Mm.
And you can still find efficiencies and provide a quality shipping and fulfillment experience without breaking the bank.
Yeah, yeah, I think that's a great point too, because I think it is, it's interesting. I was just talking to somebody earlier today about, the idea of micro fulfillment centers and, this whole thing where everybody's trying to deliver everything in like 15 minutes or 2 hours. And, is there really a need for that? Right. And it depends on the use case and then the product. But like to your point, I mean, the majority of stuff, people, they don't need it like that quickly in a sense, right? So how do you create that balance? And I think that's a great thing there to see, and be curious to see like how that continues to evolve as well, and how that narrative will shift a little bit, and maybe change the tone a little bit from the consumer saying that they want everything right now when in reality they probably don't necessarily, right? So I think
Mhm.
that's a great perspective there, Mark, and really appreciate you coming on the show, sharing a little bit of your journey with us, and also Caraway's journey too, and how you guys navigate some things, especially the returns. I think that's super interesting, and certainly a challenge for a lot of people. So really appreciate you coming on and sharing your time with us today. If people are interested in getting in touch with you, or maybe they're interested in buying some stuff from Caraway too, what's the best way to do that?
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for having me, Kevin. It was great to chat, and always happy to talk about everything 3PL, fulfillment, operations. I can go on for days, as I'm sure many of my colleagues
Yeah.
and counterparts would say. In terms of Caraway, depending on when this airs, you might still be in time for the holiday special that we're running our best promotions for the year. So you got to go to carawayhome.com to unlock all kinds of different bundles and deals, and really a fantastic just experience to revamp your kitchen. So I'd encourage that ASAP for anyone listening. For myself, you can connect with me on LinkedIn. Pretty simple, LinkedIn / Mark Riskowitz. It could be Mark dash Riskowitz. Actually, I'm unsure of the exact typos, but the good news is there's only one or two Mark Riskowitzes in on LinkedIn apparently, so shouldn't be too hard to find.
All right, great. And we'll definitely put that at thenewarehouse.com, and also in the show notes. We'll link to the right Mark Riskowitz, the best Mark Riskowitz, we'll say here, there in the show notes, so people can easily connect with you and
Not
find
the
that.
fake one, if there is. Speaking of
Yeah,
fake
not the
friends,
fake
fake
one.
profiles, it's probably the next thing coming.
Yeah, yeah. The deep fake of Mark
Oh yeah.
Riskowitz out there. Yeah.
It's gonna get to
All
a
right.
point where the deepfakes are so real that I'll start doubting if I actually said that or not. I'm like, I can't remember 10 years ago if that was really
Yeah.
what I said.
Definitely. That's a good topic for the next podcast. There, we'll have you back on to discuss that deepfakes in the e-commerce world. So
100%.
definitely, definitely appreciate you coming on and your time today, Mark. And thank you once again for joining me.
Of course. Thanks for having me, Kevin. Appreciate it.
Hey guys, thank you so much for tuning into today's video here on our YouTube channel, the New Warehouse Podcast. And I appreciate you tuning in. If you liked what you saw, make sure you subscribe to our channel. And if you like this video in particular, make sure you like it as well. And if you want to get this great t-shirt that you see in the video behind me, Warehouses Are Sexy, head to warehousesaresexy.com and get your own.